morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily on the first work day of this week. Am I Omakide?
For some people. Well, let's start off your day right. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
And to start that day right, we'll begin with the papers. And Wale Fatade joins us this morning. He is commissioning editor with The Conversation Africa. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Hope you had a good Easter.
It was wonderful. I left your Lagos.
You left our Lagos?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was wonderful.
But yeah, you're back to the Lagos.
I'm back to your Lagos.
Is it not one of those census?
But it was
I know. So Lagos has you here.
It was a relaxing period for me. Yeah, having paid my taxes in Lagos for nearly 3 decades, I still have to go to Osun State to get document that I'm from Osun State. So it's your Lagos.
Oh dear. Anyway, that's not the conversation this morning. The first of those we are talking about is on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. By the way, I hope you're not doing census migration. Don't answer that yet. Nigerian Tribune this morning leads with Afe Babalola to FG. Suspend 2023 elections. Set up 6-month interim governments. That's the lead of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper this morning and has a few riders. Proposes new constitution that will provide for part-time legislators, wants next president to be healthy, educated, not more than 60 years old. Says Nigeria faces bankruptcy due to activities of corrupt leaders. Stories on page 23. What are your thoughts?
Well, I saw the stuff when it broke late yesterday night. And substantially, I agree with what Baba Babalola is proposing. And full disclosure, I'm not sure I've seen Baba Babalola in almost 2 decades. So, but those who know me privately, and I'm sure some of my friends and family members who might be watching now will know that I've always believed that elections cannot solve our problems. And the people that have, the only set of people that have benefited from regular election cycle in Nigeria remains our politicians, not the rest of us. I might have issue with the aspect of legislating on age. Because after all, young will become old. So if you are fit, you are fit. But I have issue with the way the federation is currently set up. The way, what's the difference between APC and PDP and other parties? We have been shown that parties are just vehicles to get people elected. After election, what is happening? We just approve how much trillion naira now? Was it for whatever? For subsidy. And here we have universities that have been shut down for over 2 months.
You know, I did put out a proposal at some point to ASU that maybe you should choose subsidy or using that same word
so that our government will actually...
But elections, essentially, are they meant to solve the problem, or it's just a part of the whole process?
For elementary political science, regular election is a sign of a growing democratic culture. But we have seen in our own place, like every other thing, we have defied the norm. We have defied the normalcy. And so elections cannot solve our problem. And the Baba made some fundamental things. For me, I've always believed that we have a bloated legislator. 109 senators, and I think 360-something House of Rep members, all drawing allowances without fail. And yet, IPPIS is what is causing problem with our university lecturers. And so, I support the, what did the Baba use? Part-time legislators. I support that. In fact, for me, I think we need just one body, a unicameral legislature, not bicameral. The other one, I'm not sure that our problem is whether it is presidential or parliamentary system of government. I think we don't have enough empirical evidence to say that. But the reality which we should stop pretending is that the structure is not working. Because we have seen the fundamental and inherent flaws in our structure, that our foundation is faulty.
But how will a new constitution solve that problem?
A new constitution. Now, I like that question. I think what is the problem with the constitution now is the sense of ownership. The first phrase of "we the people," that's fraud. I was not part of that. Yes, a group of people wrote the 1999 constitution on our behalf.
How could you have been a part of that?
Okay, what are the substantial issues we want to agree on?
No, I'm just saying if...
No, I'm answering that, because you are the one asking the question. Let me answer that. That what are the issues that are germane to our existence as a nation? We've spoken about whether it's true federalism or it's no federalism. Till today, some state governments are still in arms. True federal structure, there are only 2 federating units, the federal and the state. So it's up to a state to determine the number of local governments they want to have. The other question, why must we have 774 local governments in the constitution? who decided that.
So the question, which is why I wanted to clear it out, is you said you were not a part of it.
How was it?
And I imagine for the, was it 200 million Nigerians as well, they might say, I was not a part of it. So how can you ensure that every Nigerian is a part of that constitution, in the build-up to the making?
Yeah, let's agree on what are the issues we want to discuss on. As many as people are bothered about, list them out.
How can we agree on that?
What are the issues that are germane to me as a person? What are the issues that are germane to other people across the federation? And you can be sure that across all of us, there will be similarities, there will be synergy. And so total that, and let's start talking about that.
So maybe a confab.
Whether you use confab or referendum, whatever you call it, we just have to talk about the way we want to live together. I mean, Sudan was together for about 50 years. It broke. We see what Libya has become. Fine, you can agree there are external influence. You can see what is happening across the Sahel now. Which place is safe? And so when a group of people do not have common goals, aspirations and objectives, we see what we have in our country now.
Well, there are those who will argue that the people who wrote the Constitution are Nigerians as well, but that's a conversation
At a certain level, you might not be able to speak for your family, even though you are the head of the family.
All right, well, right above the nameplate is a very, very troubling story on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Dubai sex tape. Lagos shuts down Christian schools. Stories on page 2. Sharing child pornography attracts 14 years in jail, it warns. Police begin investigation. This has been much talked about topic, and it's very, very concerning, wouldn't you say?
It's sad. And I think this is the second or third time that I will be here analyzing stories. I mean, newspapers, and we find something that has to do with a child or children now. As a father, it's troubling. And the question I want to ask is that, who takes such people to Dubai? 10-year-old? Fine, children go on excursion. On Saturday, was it Saturday or Friday? Saturday, I was talking with a friend of mine. We grew up together. And we were talking about the impact our teachers have on us or had on us as younger people. And how we never knew they were such benefit to us. And so at age 10, I was already in secondary school. And I know that if I didn't go for camp from school, I would have gone for camp from the church. I would have gone for camp from Boy Scout. I would have gone for camp on neighborhood. So at what point did the adult supervision break down? Those are issues. And how come those kids have access to those gadgets and they were able to use it? And I remember reading the biography of what's this late Apple guy, Steve Jobs, saying that his children never had access to gadgets until a certain age. And in my own house, until you finish your high school, you only share the phones of your parents. You don't have your own phone, but you share our phone. So we give it to you to use whatever you want to use. So I think it's bothersome on all fronts. The other thing which we said when this other one happened, is it Omimi Run or whatever? I can't remember. The Down College. The level of supervision of private schools in Lagos is suspect. What is the Inspectorate Division doing? I know there is a Quality and Assurance Division in the Ministry of Education. What are they doing? All these things, can't they just track them? And I think shutting down all the Christian schools, I'm not sure that is actually the way to go about it. The children need therapy. A lot of things have gone wrong.
One of the questions that I often ask occasionally when we come to issues like this is, okay, I haven't heard a situation where children in a school, a public school in US, even a private school in US, leave the country to go have excursion. I haven't heard. Maybe it happens, I don't know. I haven't heard such about the UK. So what is wrong with taking our children from one part of Nigeria to other parts of Nigeria to know the nation better?
I think some of these things, which we at certain levels, sadly those of us who are parents feeling that, we take our children to certain schools to satiate our own ego. These children do not understand whichever school they are going to. So I think the level of parenting we have these days is suspect. I'm a parent, and so, but the other thing we have lost, not that we are losing, is that Yoruba saying of only a pair of eyes give birth. 100 or 200 pairs of eyes raise the children. We have lost that. There are things, and because of my nature, because of my work nature, I see kids as late as 10 a.m. sauntering to school. I mean, I've had to break fights around 10, 11 a.m. I've had to see children in high school, secondary school, smoking weed at that moment. I've had to see them improperly dressed. And all of us as adults, as guardians, we pretend that does not concern us as long as they are not our children. I've seen those things.
You know, as news people, you prepare for stories.
Any eventuality.
But this one just
throws you off balance.
Honestly, and yes, it's a developing story, different sides. I mean, the parents' side has been heard. Well, the school side as well.
Who tests a 10-year-old for pregnancy, for God's sake?
And that's the point I'm trying to make. So I think that a statement has been put out by the school saying, well, the most they did was a COVID-19 test. As I said, it's a developing story. In fact, it is said that that trip was for a sporting event, not an excursion, as it was. It's a global school sporting event.
So were they representing Nigeria, or were they representing Lagos State?
So questions that might be put to the school, essentially, but at least we know that the school or the schools have been shot under the chain of Chrisland. The police is investigating it, but it's important to get those facts clear.
The other question for me is, our police, are they adequately empowered enough to know what to find out?
Well, and this conversation, and as Kade said, the more questions, the more issues that have to be. Just a quick one to mention that APC, PDP, ABGA, others notify INEC on presidential convention. PDP to hold primaries May 29, APC May 30, 31, SDP, 7 others keep mum on dates. Find that story on page 25.
Well, let's turn our attention to Guardian. The Guardian newspaper is next on our lineup, and this is what you find on the front page, different from some of the issues raised so far. And take a look at it. Investors want more slice of 13.76 trillion naira pension assets in stocks. Only 7% of pension invested in equities. Adonri, market too risky, volatile for pension fund investment. I imagine people with pensions.
My heart is palpitating already.
Okay, let me finish the right.
My heart is palpitating already.
Maybe it will calm your
because
nerves.
60 is the retirement age, and I'm just wondering what are these people saying.
And you're nearing that already.
I'm marching towards 60.
Okay. More riders. Worries over government borrowing from funds despite growing default rate. PFAs invests 74.54 billion naira in infrastructure. CBN eyes funds for infracore. Low PFAs investment profile responsible for rising illiquidity. 22 states responsible for low enrollment. So the Guardian is focusing on this very important, 13.76 trillion. That's very close to our 2022 budget, just how many trillions less. So very important sector or subsector. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm speaking as someone who's pension funds, and I'm just like...
You're an interested party in this
Definitely. Case. And I'm curious. I think for me, with my own little experience, I won't support investment in stocks. It's volatile. And I think there's a pension act that specifies the specific amount or the percentage that could be invested in stocks. I think, but the other one that the rider that you mentioned is the lack of repayment, prompt repayment. That's worrisome. So that by the time we want to draw this, what happens? The other thing, I think there is a provision too of subscribers being able to borrow from the pension fund. I'm aware that in the US you can take out of your 401 or 444 whatever. So that, but then you pay interest. So I think people, maybe we will encourage that more of subscribers borrowing funds so that you pay. So, but the other thing I'm bothered about is when money sits down line fallow, there is issue. Then are they able to do offshore investment? Can they do that?
The Daily Trust newspaper is interested in the elections this morning, and this is what you have on its front page. Section 8412. 53 commissioners, others resign in states as Buhari's ministers stay put. 2 riders, Ngige declares for presidency today. It's against the law to remain in office, says Fage. No big deal, says Kari. Different strokes.
Yeah, are the 2 people lawyers? If they are lawyers, they should not worry, because lawyers have this nice ability to argue both sides of an issue. But I think it's up to the courts to adjudicate. And I could imagine my lawyer friends salivating already on the fantastic briefs that might come after this. I think we have not sorted it out. There is a case in court that the National Assembly or the Senate said they are appealing. So I think let's see it out too. But if I were in those shoes, I would resign so that I will not be caught napping when things happen.
Well, let's turn our attention to Daily Times, and we're still talking funds, just as we saw on The Guardian, but this is a different kind of funds entirely. It's the $418 million Paris Club loan refund, almost a tongue twister there. And you see, don't tamper with funds accruing to us, states 1FG. say if FG proceeds to make any deduction, it will be acting illegally and in contempt of their appeal. So this back and forth between
yeah, you know
FG
that
has been on
story
for a
of someone being a consultant, deserving this or not deserving this. And I watched the press conference.
You know, being a consultant, there are no rules guiding it, essentially. It's maybe whatever agreement you had before, saying, okay, I'm going to get 10% of this when it goes through.
If you are consulting
essentially
for me, you must get my consent before you consult for me. You don't retain a consultant on my behalf. No, I've not given you the power of attorney, and I think that's what the states are arguing about.
But you know, I don't
that
think
the consultants was retained, not without their, without their input or whatever. You know, it's been long drawn out that some of the claims have not been verified. That and there have been allegations that the Attorney General of the Federation is in cahoots with this consultant. A lot of stories, a lot, and I think our colleagues have done great stories on this. So why can't the federal government wait for the case to get to its logical conclusion before taking decision?
Well, speaking of logical conclusion, that's all we'll conclude with the Daily Times.
Well, but Nigerian News Direct is not concluded on that story.
Oh, there you go.
That's what it has on its front page. 418, well, I'll expect that there's some million somewhere there. Paris Club loan refund. Any deduction will be illegal. Contempt of appeal, say governors. Say they were not parties to any suit on loan refund. Deduction may cause slip into bankruptcy for some physically fragile states. That's a dimension brought by Muda Yusuf. The details you find on the inside pages of the paper this morning.
Well, see that there's a consensus at least on that topic. But let's turn our attention to politics with the Leadership newspaper. Well, 2023 is just 15 minutes away for a lot of politicians, as I say, quarter to 2023. And that's where you find Igbo presidency. Southeast leaders want consensus across party lines, and a host of riders Ohaneze to meet Southeast presidential aspirants, as Ngige declares today. PDP scrambles to reduce a number of aspirants and a host of other riders there. Do you think gradually the political parties, or at least the political players, are nearing a consensus tilting towards the Southeast right now, or is still generally being thrown open anywhere, north, south?
That's so far-fetched, and it will be difficult for me sitting down here to pronounce oracularly on that. But then, from years of covering the political field in Nigeria, I don't think so. I don't think so. And interestingly, I would actually love so. I would wish so. And for those who might be pillaring our Igbo people, we remember that after the death of Abacha in 1999, there was a near unanimity of opinion that gave it to the Yoruba people to pacify them. And so fine, someone might argue that the situations are different, but I think to strengthen the bond of what we have, we might be looking at the Igbo people. But the other thing again now is up to the Igbo people to persuade the rest of us, to let us know what you are going to do differently, and to let us know that you are not getting that just to break down this roof upon our head. So it must be give and take for both sides. So if Ohaneze is actually trying to ensure that they prune down the aspirants, and I think now each of us in the newsroom should be running a calendar of who we declare today, so that we can be updating that, because it's a daily declaration now.
Oh, there you go. That's the Leadership newspaper. They love other stories right there, but I'll let you do the choosing yourself.
Well, the Vanguard newspaper leads with money talks, but not the ones we've talked before. That's it. 4 trillion naira bill. How petrol subsidy grew by 349.42% in 3 years. Has a number of riders. While cost of subsidy is rising by experts. Mr. Fatali is already laughing. You have your...
No, you know why I'm laughing? Why I'm laughing is that I could still picture that, whether it's a campaign footage or the interview of our president, that word subsidy. And I hope people can, maybe you people can play that repeatedly, so that president can answer the question himself. That word subsidy, what are they subsidizing? That was our president before he assumed office. But now under him, subsidy has grown. In fact, I think we must look for another adjective. This is more than astronomical.
You know, when you raise that, as a number of people have raised it as well, one of the questions that comes to my mind is, the president today was at some point heading the Ministry of Petroleum.
Yeah. He's still the substantive minister.
At some point back in time. Okay. And then I think this whole subsidy talk started under the Gowon government.
Yeah.
Many years ago.
Yes. So, I remember an article I did like that. It started under the Gowon government.
So if we had that, back then, and the president, before he became president, was saying there is no subsidy, I'm wondering where you think that was coming from.
Well, the question is that we cannot, this is our country, we cannot rule out some shenanigans or some games being played on subsidy payment. That's one. The other thing for me is that why we might not, we should demand accountability from those we should. What has happened to this government's promise of fixing our refineries in 7 years? Nothing has been done. That's a crucial thing.
Well, since we've already talked about that, let me leave that main story, and there is that story you find right above the nameplate. Insecurity sit at home, petrol scarcity caused food price hike in Q1 of 2022. That's according to a report. The story is on page 9, and it will seem like that.
It's serious. The different UN agencies in the last 2 months have spoken about how food security is a huge problem in Nigeria. They've identified some states, including our FCT, as where it will bite very hard.
Well, speaking of the FCT, let's head over to the nation's capital with the Abuja Inquirer. This is what you find on the front page. It's on school feeding, interestingly about food as well. FCT bill climbs to 12.5 million naira daily, captures 44,000 additional pupils. Vendors plan protest over huge debts.
Yes, because and it is across states. I'm familiar with this because I got family members who are vendors who are cooking and selling the food. And I was asking one of my aunties, she said she's no longer doing it because they don't pay them. So she has stopped. And it's serious. One angle you should look at it is that food cost is increasing. Food prices are skyrocketing. A gentleman was telling me yesterday how he was shocked the 2 fishes he wanted to buy, the one we call Titus. How they said the long one he asked for was 1,005. And he said he eventually bought it. But that when he got home, he told his wife that thank you, because I don't know how you have been managing if this is what I saw in the market.
But that will also then question, for those that are still in that, 44,000 additional pupils, that's even just for the FCT alone. That will question first the quality of the food now. Because if they are not being paid,
it must have gone down.
Those vendors will always find a way, at least
getting by, yeah. So the quality would have been diminished.
And government is not unaware of the rising cost of food.
You just read to us the inflation report. Yeah.
Exactly. If anything, the government is essentially in charge right now, seeing all that data. Yeah. So how should we approach this school feeding matter? I know it's been controversial over time. It's something definitely a lot of people welcomed, especially what it will do to the education system, encourage more children.
Studies have shown that food or hunger keep children away from school.
And then the chain of businesses
that has shown that when you feed children, their attendance increases.
Exactly.
Enrollment surges.
So that's for the education aspect. Yes. The business aspect, you've said that people that have been, when he was working well, I imagine that they were smiling to the bank.
Yes.
So how do we approach this?
Well, it's up to us to be, the first question we need to be sure of in our country is the money truly being spent on what it should be spent on? And then is it getting to where our destination or our target is? Then I could imagine how many supervisors we have. That was a beautiful story some of our colleagues did on what's this other one? The one they give to unemployed people. And with graphics, beautifully illustrated how before the money gets to the Empower, thank you. Before the money actually gets to the graduates that they ought to get to, it has been chiseled out due to different layers. And then you will not rule out fraud or corruption. So that's what we need to do. And then the other thing again is that what does it cost to feed an average student? Because you have to review that cost. What it cost when the program started cannot be the same cost as that today.
No, you said something that's very striking now, and I think many people will be very shocked and interested in how we can use it to stem the tide of certain values that have been.
Studies have shown that attendance increases.
About school children being fed helps them to stay in school.
Yeah. It helps their learning, it helps the cognitive ability. Studies have shown that a lot of them have not eaten balanced diet in their homes. It's only what they eat in the school that increases their brain. And child psychologists and pediatricians will tell us that the first 5 years of a child are the most important years for our brain to be well formed.
With this information known to us, what would you say might be responsible for the quote-unquote failure of this program, which we know?
I think for me, based on
what
my
you have
insight,
said,
it's just the money not getting to where it should get.
But
it's money not being well spent.
My question is about the system, the
systemic issue that we have.
Systemic,
like every other thing, intervention.
If we institutionalized it,
yes,
as we should have institutionalized so many things in our nation and systems, this wouldn't be an issue. Some things would just go like a conveyor belt.
Yeah, because you could actually even start from the farmers. That for this set of farmers, their farm products are solely for school feeding program. And so I'm sorry, the farmers are guaranteed access, market access, which is important for them too. Because sometimes those local farmers do not get value for their products. So they are guaranteed value. The cooks are there. So there's a whole lot of value chain that can be added.
But let me add this to it, because we're talking education, then we've talked about our system and all of that. Sadly, just recently, I think it was UNICEF that was speaking about how many schools have been closed. Over 11,000.
Yes.
So on the one hand, we're doing this to ensure that more children get into school, and I mean, talk about the future, right? We need to raise leaders of the future, ensure we have a better educated population. But on the other hand, over 11,000 schools closed.
That's security angle. I mean, when children go to school today, some people will come and take them away. I mean, you will be a fool to say my child go to school again tomorrow. That's the security issue.
Oh, clearly multifaceted.
So we must tackle the hunger issue. We must tackle the security issue. And you know the other thing again too, farmers have left the farmlands because of security.
Since we know all these things, I'm just hoping that we'll be able to face them squarely, especially concerning children, because just as we said yesterday, remember what former President Obasanjo said, that if we don't take these children back to school, we're literally creating problems.
But we can see children in Nigeria are the most vulnerable. They are the most at risk. To be a child in Nigeria is akin to a death wish.
We hope not.
Well, we hope it will change.
Hopes. Well, let's close with Mr. and Mrs.
Hope springs
well, this is a new one. Mrs. is saying to Mr. with her back turned to him, he spends half his money on energy drinks and aphrodisiacs. Now, what do you call that? And the man, closing his eyes, an uninterruptible power supply. Wale Fatade, thank you so much for this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Nice to be here.
Well, Sunrise Daily continues right after now with our first issue for the day, and it's about security again. Please stay with us.
The cries of agony and heart-wrenching pain is palpable in this conference room at the National Human Rights Commission. Family members of the kidnapped travelers of the ill-fated AK-9 Abuja train shed uncontrollable tears. In an emotion-laden voice, they lament the agony the victims are going through in the hands of the bandits. They want government to rescue their loved ones.
There's a 7-month-old woman and 2 weeks now who only gives birth through cesarean section. Only God knows the trauma she's going through. We have other people that are sick that require daily medication. They don't have access. There's a toddler who is 2 years old, for God's sake. We can only imagine what they're going through.
We can only plead, we can only beg the government, please, they should come to the aid of these people. Look at the pregnant woman, 7 pregnant now, 2 weeks, it's like almost getting to 8 weeks, and she's already been given an appointment for cesarean section. Is she going to be there at that period? Please come to the rescue of our family members. Come to the rescue of your citizens. Come to the rescue of your children, of your son, of your wives. Please, Mr. President, do something.
The representative of the Executive Secretary, Human Rights Commission, assures them of a quick response.
The Commission is actually monitoring the events closely in the media and also making contacts with the relevant authority. We will definitely collect the plea and also ensure that it is transmitted to the relevant authority. And we work closely with the relevant authority to ensure that the right thing is done.
The agony is written all over their faces as they continue to pray for the best for their loved ones.
You know, there is no way, I dare say, you would watch that video and not be overwhelmed with emotions. Now, those are relatives and families of the passengers who were abducted on that AK-9 Kaduna-bound train 3 weeks ago, by the way. It's exactly 3 weeks since that attack and eventual kidnap took place. So many things have happened since then. But what you saw there was a visit by those relatives to the NRC, and that was last week. A few days after, there's been some updates, and we'll take a look at the plight of those abducted and the family members, the relatives on the one hand, and of course talk about the security angle to this. But let's start off with the security angle to this, and we're joined on the program this morning by Mr. Dennis Makri, who's a retired assistant director at the DSS, is also a security consultant. Mr. Makri, thank you for joining us on Sunrise Daily this morning. I know that security officials, I mean, those with security backgrounds like you have a tendency to be dispassionate when it comes to issues such as this, so that you can at least take a look at the facts and approach the case on a case-by-case basis. But seeing this one, really, even as a security consultant, as a person with security and intelligence background, how does it hit you? But seeing this one, really, even as a security consultant, as a person with security and intelligence background, how does it hit you? Because
and of course, their public information system should be informing these people about how far they've gone, what they've done, and what future to expect. Should be informing these people, we're not hearing anything from it. How far they've gone, and
well, we apologize for that feedback. We'll try to resolve that and get back to Mr. Makri, who was sharing his thoughts first about the plight of the family members, how he thinks information should have been disseminated to them, keep them in the know, and all of that. We'll also try to get the perspective of the relatives of the victims of that Kaduna train kidnap. It's really a lot to wrap our heads around, especially the fact that it's been 3 weeks, 21 days after that attack and kidnap of the victims. We've seen videos surfacing showing the plight of the victims. A few of them have been released, but largely most of them remain in captivity.
You know, the fears that a good number of people are having, is that we hope that this is not going to be just another case. You know, one of the questions so many people have raised, security personnel, even retired IG, a retired IG has also said, look, where is the punishment for offenders? You know, as I have said it before, and I'm going to say it again, I have implicit confidence in the intelligence community in Nigeria. I can't, for the life of me, believe it is not possible for us not to know who these people are. It is not, I don't believe it is possible, because we have extremely intelligent people in the intelligence community in this country. We have nose to the ground, ears to the ground, we have eyes to the ground, we have everything that we need to know who these people are. And we have also heard, you know, some leaders tell us that some of these people have been identified, that they're going to name them, and you know, and all of that. We haven't heard anything about that. So it raises the question of why these people who are perpetrators of these incidences have not been arrested or prosecuted where there have been arrests. So many things, you know, really, so many questions to ask, so many issues to raise. And that is why many people are wondering if this is a body language thing or a political, what's it called now, a political
will, as they say.
And as they say, I'm still looking for how that matters, whether we have laws that guide security agencies to do their jobs. Which one of them has done their jobs and has not done it in the interest of the people and has been lambasted for it? So many issues that are there that one needs to raise. And,
you know, it's important to keep these issues in the front burner so we don't move on. There's a tendency to move on at just another story and we move on. It's been 3 weeks. But while we try to reconnect with Mr. Makri, we're joined also on the program this morning by Dr. Abdul Fatai Jimoh. He is a spokesman, relatives of the kidnapped victims of the NRC AK-9 train attack. Dr. Jimoh, thank you for joining us on the program. I was asking Mr. Makri earlier on about how he felt watching the video of relatives, you and others, you know, speaking passionately and emotionally about the state of the victims. And I'd like to know, these past 21 days, how would you describe them first?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. The past 21 days has been very agonizing for us, as parents, as children, as husbands, as wives, as relatives. That's really been very traumatic for all of us. It's been 22 days of sleepless nights.
And, you know, the need to wrap heads around these things. But so far, what have you heard? What has anyone been able to tell you? Maybe security agencies. What kind of communication are you getting? Because so far, what we've known is we're still wondering whether or not, indeed, there is any communication from anybody, whether from the government or from anyone, about the plight of your relatives.
Yeah, actually, that is one of our major concerns now. We have not really had an official contact with government officials or security agencies. All we have been hearing, all we have been reading about our relatives in captivity are on the pages of newspapers or what we hear from people. We have not had direct communications from government officials or security agents. The last one we had was what we read in newspapers yesterday, where the senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Malam Garba Shehu, assured relatives of victims that government is doing all that is possible to ensure the release of kidnapped victims, and that very soon the outcome of their efforts will be apparent. That's all this is the latest we had from government as at yesterday.
Okay, so there is some communication from government. How assuring is that for you? Because a number of people will be wondering, you know, how that will play on the minds of the people who are concerned.
Yes, the communication actually is not directly to us. It was in the press, we read it. It was a bit of relief for us to hear this from Malam Garbashu yesterday, that government is making efforts to ensure the release of kidnapped victims very soon. It was a kind of relief to us because this is the second time we are having something from government that gave us some hope. The last we had was on last Wednesday after the Federal Executive Council meeting, when the Minister of Information also made some comments about the plight of kidnapped victims. The one we had yesterday from Malam Garbashu is also reassuring. We are just praying that government will make more efforts to ensure that this release of kidnapped victims is effected very quickly. Thank you.
How about the state governments? Is there any conversation or communication from any state governments to you or your members?
None. There's no communication from any state government to us. No communication.
There are those who will also wonder, because one of the issues so many people have also raised is maybe the NRC, the Railway Corporation, should also be in touch one way or another, at least to assuage people.
Yeah, we had expected this from the beginning, from the Nigerian Tribune Corporation, to reach out to the relatives of victims, you know, as a means of assuaging our feelings. But up till the moment, we have not got anything concrete from them, you know, either from the Nigerian Tribune Corporation or from the Ministry of Transportation. There's no any direct link with us.
Well, last week, so our ultimatum was given as well, just to understand really, because if you're saying for 21, 22 days, you've not really heard much, it's quite worrisome. So you gave that 72-hour ultimatum last week. What was the outcome? Was there an acknowledgement or otherwise? What came out of it?
Yeah, the ultimatum we gave last week expired on Thursday. But as at Wednesday, after the Federal Executive Council meeting, the Minister of Information, after the meeting, was asked about the response. He acknowledged the ultimatum, and he assured us that government is on top of the situation. That was as at last week. So it means they acknowledged our ultimatum and responded to it. Okay,
so let's talk about your relatives in captivity.
Yes.
We've seen at least 2 videos showing their plight, some of them speaking, very heart-wrenching video, I must say. What can you tell us about their state right now, at least from what you know, or the little you know? What can you tell us?
Honestly, it is difficult to talk about their state now because one can only imagine the situation they are in. These are people who, under the sun and rain, they are in the open, you know, and they sleep on bare floor. You know, though for the past 22 days now, one can imagine, with one clothes, no bath, no cover, you know. And some of these victims are actually, they have some health challenges. There are some of them with diabetes, some with hypertension. In fact, there's a pregnant woman who is 7 months old, you know, whose pregnancy is 7 months old. And from what we hear from relatives, this is a woman that normally delivers by cesarean section. And in fact, she's due for delivery by the end of this month. One can only imagine the conditions she'll be going through now. In fact, let me tell you, one of the wives of one of the abductees, the moment she saw that video, and she's also pregnant, she started bleeding just because of fear. This is a woman that's not even in captivity, just the fear of seeing her husband. She started bleeding and she had to be admitted in the hospital. So you can imagine a woman who is 7 months pregnant and who always delivers by cesarean section under this type of condition. There is an 85-year-old woman there. This woman is, you know, of course, at 85 years, you should expect that she should have health challenges. She's been under the sun, under the rain for 22 days, sleeping there, waking up there, not changing clothes, no brushing, no medication. Honestly, the situation is very, very pathetic. We can only imagine what they are going through. The trauma, the psychological trauma, the mental torture, it's unimaginable.
And, you know, hearing you talk about that is really heartbreaking, I must say. I mean, if a woman was 7 months pregnant, it's been 3 weeks. She's nearing 8 months already, which is the time of delivery, essentially. And, you know, just tell us, how many people are in captivity right now? How many people do you know are still in captivity?
Yeah, it is difficult to know, but from information we got, the video that they showed us is a camp. And we understand, we learned from information we got that people in that camp are 68. But after the release of the MD of Bank of Agric, so we expect that there are 67 people there now in the camp that is shown in the video. 67 people should be there.
You know, we've asked, you know, whether or not you've heard anything from government for one particular reason, and you've cited that when you talked about the woman who began to bleed. She's not the one in captivity, but she began to bleed when she saw, you know, her spouse, you know, in captivity. So I'm wondering if you can tell us what the state of affairs of some of the people like you, how are you feeling? How are other people like you who are expecting your relatives to be rescued, how are you feeling? What's the state of health of all of these people who are not in captivity, but who are directly affected by what's happened?
Yeah, thank you. We are really traumatized too. It's been very difficult to keep the children, you know, calm. For the past 22 days, there's virtually no day they will not be crying. When is mommy coming back? When is daddy coming back? When is my sister coming back? The husbands, you know, the head of the families also cry, but they just have to go to be strong, to keep the children strong. But it has been very, very difficult. It has been a depressing moment. You know, we hardly sleep, we hardly eat, and this is fasting period. We are still fasting, but we hardly eat and we hardly sleep. It's really traumatizing. Even the mere fact that you think about your loved ones in captivity is enough to give you a lot of stress. And this is what we are going through. The direct family members, the relatives, friends, everybody is in serious pain.
What is also mind-boggling, Dr. Jimoh, is what are the demands from the terrorists? What do they want, really?
Actually, we don't know what they want. After the first contact with our relatives, they told us that we should get ready for them, that they will call us. But after that first call, virtually all of us, maybe 95% of us, you know, I mean the relatives, have not had a second call from them. The only thing we had when the first video was released was that government knows what they want and it is government they want to talk to. We don't know actually what they want from government, but they have not been communicating with us. So we're in the dark.
But Dr. Jimoh, you said that they communicated with you. How did they communicate? Did they send someone? Did they make a phone call?
Actually, they just allowed the relatives to make call. We did not have any conversation with the abductors. The conversation, they just use a relative's number and call. Then the phone will be given to the captive, and then you talk directly. Not a word was exchanged with the abductors. We have not had any conversation with them at all. But we had conversation with our relatives in captivity, just to assure us that they are alive and they are with them. That's the only conversation, and that we should get ready for the next call that will come when we will likely start bargaining, which has not come. So in essence, we have not had any discussion at all with the abductors.
Right. Are there those among you whose relatives have been released? We understand that some people have been released so far. Do you know of any such case?
I know of just one person. That's the managing director of Bank of Agric. That's the only person I know has been released so far. All others are rumors, they're not confirmed. So I know of one that is sure. The managing director of Bank of Agric is the only one we know at the group that has been released.
Right. I saw one of the interviews that you granted and some other people, I think it was last week, where you were speaking about the situation, the plight, and one of you said that the payment of ransom may have jeopardized the chances of others, and I'd just like you to speak to that as well. What is the thinking of the group regarding that? Does that imply that ransom has indeed been requested? And what do you mean by it's jeopardizing the chances?
Well, the person that made that statement is the only one that can explain it. He is not the spokesperson for the group, and that was his personal opinion. You know, he's the one that can explain it. Because from what we saw in the video, it appears the main objective of the abductors is to have a conversation with government. And that could be responsible for why they have not called any other relative since the first contact with our relatives in captivity.
At this point, are you certain, do you have some confidence that with the ongoing negotiation or conversation, which you say is happening between them and government, that this will come to a joyful conclusion? Do you have confidence in the government at this time?
Yeah, we do have confidence in the government. They have come out to assure us that they are doing a lot to ensure the safe release of the abducted persons, and we believe them. We know they have the capacity to do it. We have seen it done in Nigeria before by this same government on several occasions. When the Kankara boys were kidnapped, over 300 of them, they knew what they did and they got them released. We saw it also happen during when the Jangebe high school girls were kidnapped in Zamfara State. They were also released. We also saw it in Dabchi. We saw it in even the Chibok girls that were kidnapped a year earlier before the advent of this government. Over 100 of them were released with the intervention of the federal government. So we believe in the capacity of government to get our relatives released from the abductors. We believe in their capacity. We believe them. We believe what they have told us, the assurances they have given us. We believe they are working seriously on it. We only want to urge them to work more and faster so that they can get out from this captivity very soon.
We also hope for the very best and believe that this will end in good news. Just one more thing. I recall also you saying that, the NRC should not resume operations just yet. We understand that the president had even given orders that they should resume operations as soon as possible. So why did you say the NRC should not resume operations just yet? Are you worried that if operations resume, then people might forget about the plight of your relatives still in captivity?
Yeah, the main reason why we said the resumption of services by NRC should be on hold for now is that, one, the most important thing is to get the people in captivity out first. And then that will also engender confidence in the public so that when services resume, they will have confidence to resume their patronage. Because the important thing is after resumption of service, before the resumption of service, they should put in place adequate security measures, safety measures, to give the will-be passengers confidence to patronize the services. You will recall that just an incident that happened 2 days before the train attack at the Kaduna airport. Up to now, airlines are very reluctant to resume their operations at Kaduna airport just because of safety concerns. So that is our main concern. We want the public to have, confidence in patronizing the Nigerian Railway Corporation when they resume services. So what we are advising is an advice that adequate security measures, in fact, even before that, they should assess what happened and put in place adequate security measures to forestall further reoccurrence of this type of incident. We pray this is going to be the first and the last in Nigeria.
I hope and pray sincerely that the next time we speak with you on the program, it will be to speak about good news of the release of your relatives. But we'd like to thank you for your time, and our hearts go out to you and other relatives who have to go through this grueling episode. And we pray that your relatives are well and safe and safely secured and rescued. Dr. Abdul Fattah Jimoh is the spokesperson of the kidnapped or the relatives of kidnapped victims of the NRC AK-9 train attack. It's been 3 weeks now, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you very much, Samani. God bless you.
Amen. Well, let's continue the conversation we started with Mr. Makri. Well, Mr. Makri, the network tried to play a fast one on us there with the, the howl back and all of that. But now that we have you back, Mr. Makri, can you continue on that trail of thoughts, what you were saying about keeping the family members informed and in the loop as to what's happening?
Yes, thank you very much. When there is a crisis like this, especially in a kidnap situation, the relevant authority have a duty of care to the victims' families, whereby they are going to be informed on a daily basis, That way, we are going to eliminate all this crying and, uncertainty that the families are facing. Just like Mr. Abdul Fattah said, the trauma that they are going through is undescribable, except you know you are part of it. Because I've been involved in so many cases like this, and of course we know what they are going through, and of course we need that NRC or even the Ministry of Transport to show that duty of care in addressing things like this.
One of the questions, well, a number of questions that we asked here between my colleague and I were to raise some of the likely security related issues that we expect that you would be able to speak with, one of which was that they used a phone to call one of the relatives. And, one of the questions that came to my mind was, I thought there was such a thing as geolocation, on the phones and all of that. Is that something that could have been useful?
Very. In fact, when there is a kidnap situation, the security agencies, when you report to them, will wait for the first phone call. And when the first phone call comes in, then they should be able to trace where that phone is coming from. And then, of course, who owns the phone. If it is the victim's phone, then, of course, they will geolocate and know exactly which general area they are. So I don't know why we are, leaving these guys to, so to say, poke a finger in the eyes of this country. Because these are ragtag people, although they have a very big capability now. The blowing up of the rail tracks, and then, of course, taking these hostages is a big message, a very big message, whereby I think they're trying to tell the government that their capabilities have increased. And I'm not surprised, because ISWAP that has come into play with Boko Haram and joined with the bandits themselves, has given them this capability of even making bombs, IEDs, with which they could blow up a train. I think the security agencies are very much aware of that message, and I hope they are also taking a very good step in ameliorating it.
Is this, I started this conversation by expressing my complete confidence in the capacity of the intelligence community in this country to get ahead of some of these issues. So with this lacuna, if I can use the term, that you just raised now about not being able to geolocate, is it a problem of capacity or what? Because just as you said, they should have waited for the first phone call. But from what Dr. Jimo told us, no one is even talking to them. So they probably weren't even there when the first call was made.
Yeah, I think they are very much aware. The security agencies are very much aware of what is going on. And I strongly believe that they must have geolocated them. Because where they displayed all those people, it's not a hidden thick forest. It's an open savanna. And I'm very sure, they have located them. But what bothers me is that why don't we have the political will to deal with this problem? It is not even going to release the hostages. It is not negotiating with them or whatever. Why are we allowing these guys to still be within our border, in our boundary, doing whatever they do, trying to challenge our military, killing our security people, and then we allow it? I think this is the time for us to, I hope the meeting of today is going to readdress this situation because it's unacceptable.
That is the point we'll come to right after this break. You talk about political will, and that's a word or a term that has been thrown up a lot. We'll explore this, plus that meeting the president is meant to hold with the security chiefs later today. That and more in a moment. Please stay with us. You're welcome back. Let's continue our conversation with Mr. Dennis Amakri. Well, you spoke about political will just before we went on that break, and you spoke in reference, or afterwards spoke about the security meeting the president is meant to hold with the service chiefs. And I wonder, for you, what does the political will look like? You've talked about borders, saying that we practically allowed these attacks to happen. So what would political will look like for you today? Well, Mr. Makri, I think you might need to unmute.
Sorry about that. I think we have the military will to deal with this, but we need the political will, because that's where the direction comes from. The political will. And let me quickly put this in. When we say political will, this particular problem that we are facing will be solved politically, because it's a political problem which is having an existential, threat to national security. Because if we don't deal with it politically, I think the objective from all the indications, from all the chats that have been going on among the bandits or terrorists as they are, is to make the country ungovernable, which they are trying to do. So I think it is very, very necessary that we address that political will. When they were releasing the managing director of the Agric Bank, they said that they don't look for money, but the government knows what they want. So that section is what should be addressed.
Political will. Again, because we have heard it so many times and it's almost sounding cliche. And you have, it's not the first time you are also talking about it. Is it something that, or lack of political will, or a political will or a lack of it, is it something that pauses the laws that set up the security agencies? They know what they're supposed to do. There are functions set up in the laws that set them up. So is a lack of political will something that pauses, puts their activities on pause?
Okay. Now, the setup is this. The ministers, the chief of staff, the service chiefs, all of them are advisors to the president. That's what our constitution says. They are actually advisors. They are not going there to take orders. They are going there to advise him, and when they advise him, he will now take a decision and give a direction that based on what you've told me now, do this, do this, do this. And that's where the political will comes to play. Because if we don't have that green light from the president, it becomes a problem whereby you cannot just go ahead. Even the service chiefs, remember one thing, the service chiefs are not field commanders. The people that actually carry out the fighting, the tactical commanders, the field commanders, are different from the service chiefs. So this direction has to be dropped all the way down to the service chiefs, and the service chiefs will now tell the tactical commanders on the field that go ahead and go in this way or this way. That's the way the boss wants it.
Well, it still doesn't satisfy my inquisition about the laws that set them up. But looking forward to the proposed meeting today, Mr. Makri, what are your expectations? You have said, you have also cited the fact that that meeting is going to hold, and with some expectations. What are your expectations, your hopes, or perhaps your conviction that something strong, something positive will come out of this than previous meetings?
I think this particular meeting is crucial. Crucial in the sense that we've had meetings like this in the past. But now we are going to hold this meeting at this time because of what is going on in the country. The country is bleeding seriously. And it is high time we come up with concrete decisions to make the country or the citizens understand that the government is there well and alive to take care of situations. Because we don't expect this meeting to come out and we hear the spokesman will say, the president said we should be tough on them, deal with everybody with AK-47. I think we'll pass that stage. Right now where we are is to deal with this particular situation, especially the terrorist situation in Kaduna State and Zamfara. Because these bandits that are there, I think need to be cleared out.
Well, we're wrapping down in a few minutes, but I want to get your reading of that statement, which we've heard from the family saying that, well, the terrorists have said, well, they don't want anything from them, essentially, that the government knows what they want. How do you read that statement?
Well, the statement is very, very easy and clear. There are many, many sound bites in the society where we are dealing with, maybe some kind of renegade bandits that came outside our borders. And whoever brought them, or for whatsoever reason, I think this is the time to deal with it and get them out of our country. The president himself had said it before. If you recall, when the Chadian general came in here, the guy that succeeded his father, when he came into Nigeria to see the president also told the pressmen that, these bandits, will be dealt with and then send them back to where they come from. So I think, like I said, the government knows how to deal with this, and we should please be very, very serious and deal with it urgently, because the country is bleeding.
Well, it is expected, clearly, that the meeting between the president and security chiefs will touch on this, and a resolution on this will perhaps be percolated all the way down. But, these attacks we have seen, majority of them happen in the rural areas, not exactly in the urban areas, in the rural areas. And, I mean, you have said it's important for the people to know that government is in charge, and, I mean, government can handle these things. Is there... I know there's security arrangement in the urban areas. In fact, people, employ their own security and have this collaboration and all of that. But it looks like we're not getting it right in the rural areas when it comes to having that rural kind of security. What would you say is missing?
I think we are not using the very good resource, and that resource is the people that live there. If you remember what happened last Thursday in Ondo State, where 3 buses, there was intelligence that 3 buses were moving into Ondo State. And then, of course, they went for them and they saw them, pursued them, 2 ran away, they arrested 1. And in that one, they arrested some people who were in the bus with daggers and guns, and all of them, now they are planning to take them to court. This is rural support. And that's what we are saying, that everybody should realize that we are in a war. We are in a war. And there are things to be done by everybody. If you see something or hear something, say something to the security agencies so that at least they can act on it. Now, we don't know if they have left those buses to come in. They might have come to hit any of our relations. So when you see something or hear something, please say something to the security agents.
Well, we have about 60 seconds to go now, and on what you just said now about seeing something and saying something, there are those who are going to put a question mark on that, because some who have said something before, there have been consequences upon them. But speak to this issue of the elections also, election security. You know what happened recently in Imo State. And there are people who are wondering how in the universe we will be able to hold elections safely and securely with the level of insecurity on hand now, knowing the way elections usually go.
I've said this before, and that is, if we don't handle this problem right now, there might not be elections. If we force ourselves to have a quasi-election, they will not be credible. And if they are not credible, then they will not be accepted by INEC. So that's why I've been suggesting that this is the time. In fact, in this meeting that they're going to hold today, I think they should decide one thing. Have a state of emergency. Deal with this problem squarely. Get rid of it. Then we can continue. And I really don't understand. The politicians are busy as if nothing has happened or nothing is happening. They are busy holding rallies, campaigning because they want to be president or governor or senator or whatever. But it is very, very important. If we don't get this security problem out of the way, then I don't think there will be any country for them to be president or senator or whatever. So let's deal with this problem, get it out of the way, then we can continue to our elections and then do what we have to do.
Well, I think that's a great place to anchor. Mr. Dennis Amakri, security consultant and a retired assistant director at the DSS. Thank you so much for your thoughts on the program this morning.
Thank you.
Well, incidentally, our next discussion is on the election process, which is said to be the bedrock of our democracy. What do we need to get right? You don't want to miss this conversation, so please stay with us.
Previous weeks and months has seen the Independent National Electoral Commission meeting key stakeholders as the nation prepares for the 2023 general elections, as well as the conduct of by-elections and governorship elections in Ekiti and Osun states. This time, the INEC chairman is meeting with reporters to give them an update on the continuous voter registration exercise. For the period under review, registrations came to about 2,523,458. A table shared by the INEC chairman shows how states performed with invalid registration coming to 1,126,359.
Since the resumption of the CVR exercise, millions of eligible citizens have availed themselves of this online pre-registration facility, as well as the physical registration in our state and local government offices nationwide, to register, update their records, or transfer their registration to other places where they wish to vote in future elections.
While the number of invalid registration, according to the INEC chairman, is no good news to the commission, he threatens to sanction staff and registrants who aid re-registration processes.
This development is worrisome because of the time and resources expended in handling these cases. Even more disturbing are the strong indications that some of our staff may be complicit in facilitating these infractions, notwithstanding the stern warnings.
And then he speaks on preparations for the forthcoming 2023 elections, especially in the face of security challenges in the country.
The truth is that someone has to secure the environment for INEC to conduct elections. And we have been speaking to the security agencies. But we are doing our own bit based on our constitutional and legal mandate to conduct elections.
Done with the speeches, the chairman, in the company of other commissioners, unveils the distribution of voters' cards. The commission is hoping that all political parties are able to conduct all primaries within the 52 days provision by the Electoral Act.
Thank you very much.
A lot of grounds to cover this morning, so let's just get straight into it. Mike Igini joins us this morning. He is a resident electoral commissioner with INEC. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, we just finished a conversation on security, as you know, and it's something that's also been on the table with INEC, what with the attacks on facilities and personnel of INEC. The question anyone would want to ask you, first of all, is what's the thinking at INEC to protect lives and livelihood of your personnel? The process has to be one that gives confidence to the people. So if INEC personnel are not secure, the people who are going to come out to vote may be a little comfortable themselves.
Well, thank you very much. All over the world, election is one very complex, all-involving activity that nations embark on in peacetime. Therefore, the spate of attacks, particularly since last year on INEC facility, have been very concerning. Particularly what happened last week in Imo State, where some of our staff, one of them was killed, two were adopted, but eventually were able to secure them, are very worrisome developments. And it shows clearly, for instance, that of Imo State, ignorance at play. I listened to one of the audio of one of the gunmen when he was saying that, look, they are talking about referendum. Yet INEC is talking about election. But does he know that in this country, it is only INEC that had the sole responsibility, duty, by law, to conduct election and referendum. So even the referendum you are calling for, why are you attacking the only body that is responsible for that if it's called for? So you could see that ignorance is at play.
Is that something INEC is also considering, a referendum?
Not at all. I'm only telling you statutorily under the law. If not for ignorance, if you are calling for either election or for referendum, which body is responsible for that? Why destroy or kill INEC staff? Why destroy INEC properties? Because if you are going to do a referendum, just like in elections, all those voter cards, the equipment, the beavers that were destroyed, are the very equipment that will be used for social exercise. But that is just by the way. Going to 2023 election, the issue of security is very, very key. And security agencies will really have to be up to their game. The job of INEC is to conduct election in an atmosphere that's free for people to come out. Because to maintain, sustain the confidence of the people calling them on election day, it must be done in an atmosphere of security. And so, this week, we are going to have a meeting of the commission. All 36 states we are going to meet, and we'll continue our engagement with the ICED, Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. So, issues of security, they have to deal with that.
Is there anything that you, in INEC, the commission may have seen as the reason for an upsurge of violence during elections in Nigeria? Is there something that has been discovered as a reason which could be useful to security agencies to get ahead of it?
Well, security challenges during elections are of different dimensions. First, as we are going for 2023, particularly with just about 45 days left for political parties to conduct their primaries that will end by June 3rd, where they are expected to submit the names of their candidates. The concern here and the core for all stakeholders with respect to aspect of security is that we call for absolute security neutrality. It will be unfair that aspirants who are seeking the ticket of their respective political parties, that one candidate or group of candidates will be given security, direction, and control over others. That will poison the path to 2023 elections.
But can you really rule that out?
That is wrong. It should be ruled out. And our call here, because if you add that level of insecurity, in addition to the fact that across the country, and this is tragic, you now, beyond having people who rent crowds for some of these campaigns you see around, we also have association of thugs in Nigeria. Within states, they are also engaged for interstate thuggery services, as you would have seen, I mean, in 2019, while the number of them were brought from Edo State to Akwa Ibom State.
Did you say association of thugs?
They have, look, first, you should know by now that we have association of a group of people who are in the business of renting crowds for campaigns. And that is why most of these huge number of people you see, they are mere facade. They rent the crowd. What you need to do, you just call them. They will ask you how many seater buses. If it's 18-seater buses, they make the calculation for you. In fact, you'll be surprised that on the day one party or two parties are having campaigns simultaneously in different areas of the state, at different time, the same set of people you find here, they will go to the other area. In the same vein, you also have thugs across the country. This is the problem introduced by politicians, the very people, many of whom who never raised a finger when the journey of Nigeria and the prospect of democracy was less certain. But today, who are beneficiaries are also the greatest threat to our democracy. So security is a very serious issue as we go for 2023 election.
I'd like us
but beyond that, are far more serious issues that we need to focus on.
Okay, just a moment. I need you to clear the air on something you raised. When you said that, security advantage should not be given to one over the other. But in the case of an incumbent, for example, who's seeking re-election, definitely the incumbent has the powers or the authorities, as it were, over security operatives. So how can you rule that one out? Because it's been said that, they use the executive powers to muzzle others. So how do we rule that out?
First and foremost, apart from Osun, Ekiti, Edo, Anambra, Ondo states, there will be elections in all other states of the Federation. So most of them, they are already in their final tenure in office. The security we are talking about here is not about those who are statutorily entitled to.
I see.
All right? But we are talking about even those who are not even statutorily entitled to, but have now been given security for their control and their direction during their own primary, within their own party, level. Then after that, when they have become candidates, because we are the level of people being aspirant, when they become candidates at the level of inter-party election, that should not happen. We need the absolute neutrality.
Okay.
First of my commission, and we stand tall and mighty in defense of that and do the right thing at all times. So also, we need the absolute neutrality of security. This is very, very important because with the trinity of the 6 critical stakeholders in elections, INEC, judiciary, and security, most of the worry tendencies of our political elite will be taken care of.
We're due for a break in 2 minutes, Mr. Igini. I'd like us to scratch the surface. Security on the one hand. Yeah. What would you say is your biggest concern as we approach the 2023 elections? Yes, we've talked about security, but for you, aside that, what is the biggest challenge? Yeah.
My biggest concern going for 2023 election is what we want to make of 2023 elections. With respect to kind of the message, what message are we giving to voters? What should they vote for in 2023? But I'm going to make this very clear, that because of the fundamental flaws of liberal democracy, as recognized by Part 1, Section 2 of the Electoral Act, the Commission, like all the stakeholders, have been enjoined to educate Nigerians, civic and voters' education on democracy and sound knowledge of democratic processes. Because the basic assumption of liberal democracy is that the people will make informed choice. The question is, in an environment where the level of literacy is so low, when poverty is high, as have been identified through various research, that poverty and the level of literacy will determine the kind of choice that we will make. Consequently, we have a duty to educate Nigerians. And what kind of education do we have to say, particularly from the point of view of umpire?
If you don't mind me pausing you there, what kind of education will the people be needing? What are the things, what are the questions that are crucial for the voter to ask before employing the next set of people? Let's deal with that when we return from this break. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Well, Mr. Mike Igini is still with us here. Well, you talked about the things that are crucial, issues that are crucial for the voter.
Right.
And I think that's one of the questions that a number of people really need to answer. What, in your opinion, are the real issues that voters should focus on in the build-up to this election? It's a general election. We're employing a new president, we're employing another set of lawmakers, new governors in a number of cases, and members of the Houses of Assembly. So what are the issues?
Thank you very much. The greatest promise of democracy is periodic election. That it gives opportunity for a people to renew the journey of their country. To also renew the journey, the policies, the ideas, and the individuals who have involved those policies. That's the greatest promise of democracy. But for you to participate actively in what we call collective self-governance, which is what election is all about, first and foremost, you have to register. Because you cannot participate in the exchange of garments, ceremony of exchange of garment, without wearing a garment. So the first message to the Nigerian people is that go and register. But in registering, I want to quickly put this out there, that I have seen, I have read, I've got questions from people about our electoral data. First, beyond Osun and the other states I have mentioned, the governorship election will take place in other states of the Federation. So today we still have 36 states of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That has not changed. The 109 Central District, there will be election. INEC will conduct an election in the 360 Federal House. And of course, there will be election also. And this election will take place in the 774 local government in the entire 8,809 RA or wards as called at the state level. This is where election will take. All data have not changed. What has changed is the expansion of polling unit to give Nigerians access to vote on election day. So from 119,000 plus, we are now having a total of 176,846 polling units. This polling unit are spread across the Federal Republic. In all the states, people should patronize them. So we are hearing about people going to court, going to ask for this, increasing that, and all of that. Our data have not changed. That is the situation. Now, for voter registration, which is very key, I just made the point that, look, for you to participate, forget about what you hear from politicians. They are going to get serious shock in 2023. And I use the opportunity to thank the National Assembly, all stakeholders, and the President for signing into law the 2022 Electoral Act.
But these are the politicians as well.
Now, yes, of course. What has been signed into law is a collective effort of all of us, despite the back and forth. What is now clear is that we have a legal instrument, but we know that the next phase of challenge will be implementation, because the devil usually is in the implementation. We are going to deal with that. But far more important is the fact that by virtue of Part 1, Section 2 of the Act, the Commission, like all other stakeholders, we are enjoined to educate Nigerians on very important information. And here, we must make separation here. May a day never come when an umpire will tell voters who to vote for, which party to vote for. That's clearly outside the remit of an umpire. However, because when you have a democracy with weak and attenuated participation, where the level of literacy is low, where poverty is a challenge, we have a duty to say that in going to 2023, what are you going to vote for? So far, so good. The conversation we are hearing in the country are really not about issues that matter to the Nigerian people. I dare say here, religion, ethnicity will not bring food to the table of the average Nigerians. Therefore, in 2023, the following issues are the issues that should define the 2023 election, because 2023 election is an election for what we call new elite formation. New elite formation. And from this month to next month, the next 45 days, we are going to see more of the disarray of the political elite. We hope they can get a level of consensus, even though we know that at the moment, as you hear them, there are no pillars of consensus, even on the idea of consensus. But however, what is key here is this. There is a report to the effect that by 2030, tagged the Next Generation Project, which shows that over 40% of Nigerians, or less than that, are under 50. And that only 3% of Nigeria above retirement age, 60 years and above. Which means that by 2030, Nigeria has been ranked as one of the countries in the world that will be having the highest number of young people. Therefore, 2023, we should be talking about argument, debate on education, infrastructure, security, energy, health, economy, job creation. Who can speak to these issues? And I give an example of Obama. In the 2012 second-term election, Mitt Romney challenged Obama, and he came up with fantastic programs. But the American people asked a question. Could you please tell the American people how you will fund these projects. Mitt Romney said he was going to clean up some leakages will be blocked.
Right.
They went for that to ask him, could you tell us these leakages and what will it amount to? Therefore, Mitt Romney could not answer the question. That's what ended the campaign. So, 2023, Nigeria should, the voters, look out for who can answer the how and the means to do it question. But it's not about, I will do this, I will do that. We have been hearing that over time.
Mr. Again,
this is a very important civic and voters education for Nigerian people.
And that's the question.
We need to have a debate on that.
Is this also within,
by adopting the Korea method, the South Korea method? I will go into that.
So, is this also within the jurisdiction, the purview of INEC? And that's how you started, saying that, well,
Part 1.
There's a line. So how do you know which line to cross?
Good. Part 1, Section 2 of the 2022 Electoral Act enjoins INEC to conduct civic voters education and to educate Nigeria and promote sound knowledge of democracy. What is democracy? Democracy is about people coming together to vote during an election. And in voting, don't forget, I don't vote by virtue of my position. It is those of you who will vote that will determine the kind of life myself, my family will live. So when the law says we should educate Nigerians, because it's recognized that education is key, because what rational choice? I mean, you could see the epidemic of vote buying in Nigeria today.
Well,
when you sell your vote, and that means that you must not sell your vote, but rather listen to somebody who will speak to the issue that matter to you.
Mr. Igini,
that's what we are saying.
Mr. Igini,
these
issues that are not new. What you're saying now has been said since 1999, and it has always been INEC's job, along with that of political parties, to educate the voter. I recall a statement credited to you recently, where you said our problem is not about insufficient registered voters. This is not the main problem, but the inability of political parties and candidates to deliver on promises upon which voters draw faith in democracy. You also remember, of course, that we have had a gradual reduction of the number of people who come out to vote for that same reason that you cited. So how is this voter education going to change that?
Yes, it's going to change it, because what we have heard over the years, I will do this, I will do that, I will revamp this. Okay, for instance, let's take for instance. You see, one of the beauty of democracy, when you have conversation, debate, because the whole essence of political party and all of that, is that you represent a distinct vision, a common good, and political party become a platform for the people to interpret the common good. Therefore, voters' education in this sense is to the effect that the moment you begin to speak to the issue that matter to them, they will be excited to want to come and vote.
But these issues don't come up.
Just a
second.
Yes.
These issues don't get raised at the primaries, and that is where the choices come up for the people. The people are left to whichever choices the political parties throw up. So at that point already, isn't it a little too late for us to be saying, you know, go choose anyone? It's only at that point that we have debates. We don't have such debates. Or are you saying that we should begin to have such debates at the political parties level?
That is what I am saying. Because Joseph Skopita made the point that in a democracy, who becomes a candidate in an election are choices made by people who already have influence and power. That in the final analysis, the choices the general populace is called to make on election day are choices already made by the political parties. Therefore, at this level where they are aspirants, the message now is that speak before you select, you elect. Take somebody as your flag bearer, whether as a state house of assembly, governorship, and all the positions, senatorial, and all of that. Ask those questions.
But how
that is the Korean method. What we have been lacking, Ayo, Over the year, we'll be hearing about promises.
How is
but
that
we have not
going
been interrogating those, pin every aspirant down.
How is that
Party
going
members,
to happen?
pin them down.
Mr. Igini, how is that going to happen? With the talk of, okay, in the new law, we have direct primaries, indirect primaries, and consensus. We know that a good number of times a particular political party has always gone the consensus way, and there has hardly been any such interrogation, just as you have talked about. And at many of these, situations, they have indirect primaries, and just from one of the political parties, we understand just about 7,800 people are going to represent all of their party members in the political party to choose the candidate of their choice. So at what point will this interrogation happen? Before the convention or during the convention?
It should be happening now. And this message we are giving because we shall meet in Philippi. The Philippi where we are going to meet, it has to do with a robust system that INEC has put in place. You could see that in 2011, voters turnout was 39%. And we had about 73-something million registered voters. That was the point I made. That the problem is not that we don't have sufficient people who are registered. All right? 2015, it dropped down to 30%. In 2019, voter turnout was 28%. It shows that there's a disengagement from the process. You know, I have made an allusion to the Urobo saying, which means that it is what the axe does for the farmer that makes it put it on the shoulder. At the moment, political class are not rallying the people on issues that matter to them. And that is why you see that going down. But the shocker is this, and that's why we are so thankful collectively to all stakeholders, that by virtue of Section 47 of the Electoral Act, that had made accreditation, the use of the beavers on any other electronic device that we have procured in place, all the era of invidious moonslide, landslide, as you will have seen, you look at the trend of the voters turnout that you have seen over time, you could see how it's been going. 2, today, by virtue of Section 50, that has given the Commission total operational independence to determine the procedure, we are very good at that. Section 51, that previously, where the total number of votes cast exceeds the total number of accredited voters, rather than based on either accredited numbers or total number of PVC collected, the previous law was that it was based on total number of registered voters, which means that if actually in a polling unit where you have just 200 registered voters and actually only 70 people showed up, the calculation is based on total number. So which means that people can sex up, can rig, all of that have been stopped. But the tragedy is that most of the people who are in politics, they are not following what INEC is doing. They are still deceiving themselves.
And it's hoped that they are listening.
They are deceiving themselves.
They are listening right
now,
Mr.
Look, buying of PVC is useless.
At this point now.
Buying of PVC, all the people that they have warehouse, they are all useless. When I say useless, to the extent that they are valid, they can be used, but to the extent that it's only those individuals that can use those PVC and not anymore, that you have wasted your resources. But the greatest problem we are having now, if you look at our current CBR, as I speak to you, we have printed well over 1.8 million PVC for the first part of it, the second, and we are now in the first and second quarter, the third quarter, and the ongoing fourth quarter that we end finally by June 30th. All right, finally by June 30th, will also be made available. But the one of the first quarter, that's from June 2021 down to December, they are ready for collection. But what you will have seen from our data is that politicians are still encouraging people or individuals believing that INEC will not detect their multiple registration we have now acquired a new system. We have moved from the AP system to what we call the AB system,
which is
the
why
automated biometric system that we now have.
And that's why we saw the over 1 million
that's what we now have. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. That's what led to the over 1 million. So, but I need to make a clarification here.
Okay, quickly.
On the social media, what the chairman said as declared as invalid registration were those who are not about PVC. It is not PVC that's invalid, but registration that were multiple could not pass the post-business rule, that could not pass the ABS, and those that are incomplete have now been declared invalid.
So everyone with a PVC.
If you have registered before, if you have lost your PVC, right, if it is defaced and you want to transfer, you don't need to register again. All you need to do is to go to our offices across the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and once you measure your name, it's entered into the system, it will be detected. But the ABs we have right now is not only dealing with fingers, it now deals with your facial recognition. And that is why well over 1 million have been declared invalid and not our permanent voter's card.
I think that's a very important clarification to make. Let's custom now. I think this is a notch higher than the usual conversation we have with INEC, and I'm glad this talks to the issues to be raised for the average voter out there. But as we wind down, I understand that your tenure in INEC is coming to its twilight. Am I right?
Yes, everything that has a beginning must have a terminal end.
And there were controversies.
Sometimes before the end of the year, I'll be saying goodbye.
Well, it's very interesting. I know there were debates and controversies about whether or not the commissioners now have civil society background and all of that. Are you worried about that as well? Because it would seem you have quite a following in INEC.
You see, no human being is indispensable. When we have opportunity to make our contribution, we make our contribution, whether in and out of office. This is our country. We have no other country but this country. We'll continue to make our contribution. And so, there are people there who will deliver. And good enough. We are happy that we have a legal template to achieve this. And that will be done.
Okay.
And I call on everybody to support, play your part, in order to build a society where there will be opportunity for all and responsibility for all. Because the broad outline of the 21st century is very clear. It offers opportunity for people who can live together, who can make changes in order to avoid the chaos of decline and decay. So, the legal instrument is so powerful. And as you all know, optimism of collective social action is natural to human beings. And the law is the prime instrument. I call on my colleagues, level of the judiciary, you must stand tall.
Okay. Well,
pardon me, there's just one more question. I'm tempted to ask this. 10 seconds. So what's next for you, Mr. Guinea, after this? I mean, it's been a ride with INEC.
The beauty about being in public office is that you must have somewhere to go to.
5 seconds more.
I am a lawyer.
So
my chamber is there.
Not politics.
All right, I have a fixed address. And not people who don't have a fixed address. That's the problem we are having today in our country.
Not politics, Mr. Guinea.
Oh, no, not politics. My office is there.
Okay. Well, for now, we'll hold you to that. Of course, I understand that there have been some INEC officers who...
Well, he said not here.
Cross-carpeted.
Quite a ride with INEC, I must say.
Well, Mike Igini, Resident Electoral Commissioner for INEC, thank you so much for your time and the education this morning. Well, the emails and tweets, your own contribution to the program this morning. Very quickly, let's begin with Abdusalam Yusuf's email that says, absolute neutrality of the security elements cannot be guaranteed if an incumbent is seeking re-election against a first-timer. The ability of INEC to carry out a free, fair, and credible process is fundamentally dependent on the conduct of contestants, voters, and security agencies. Also, the issue of vote buying cannot be curtailed amidst the current economic realities. I've seen voters that are hungry and starving selling their votes less than 500 naira in a recently conducted election in the northwest region of this country.
Which is why we need better education and better economic indices for the people. Well, also this tweet from Abdul Salam Yusuf says, absolute neutrality. Well, I think we took that already, yeah. So let's move on to Olagoju's tweet saying, we practice more individual security instead of national security. That's on the conversation we had earlier on security, where FG is a major actor with many different dimensions of security. We need to recognize the importance of the security of the state and their institutions for the security of the individual.
On Fixing Nigeria, Professor Nakena says there must be synergy between the three tiers of governments to fix the deliberate impoverishment of the people by political elite. We must have an national economic plan, policies and programs to alleviate poverty, cut corruption by enacting humane economic policies.
We have to run now, but so many food for thoughts, or do I say foods for thoughts to chew on.
It's a buffet.
Absolutely, this morning. We'd like to thank you so much for being a part of our show. As always, we appreciate your time and wish you the very best today. I'm Kayode Okikilu.
Listening is just the beginning. Let's do something to make Nigeria better. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.